BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. And yes, indeed, today is another Zodiac Killer book discussion. We are continuing onward with Zodiac Unmasked by Robert Graysmith. This is perhaps one of the more famous books that we have discussed on the channel. Some of the previous Zodiac Killer book discussions that we did were on The Great Zodiac Killer Hoax of 1986 by Thomas Henry Horan, as well as The Most Dangerous Animal of All by Gary Stewart, along with his co-writer Susan Mustafa. If you haven't heard those yet, we have playlists available on the channel. Highly recommend you check them out. Why not? But now, moving on to our discussion about Robert Graysmith and Zodiac Unmasked. The first thing I would say is, I really like the flow of this book. I mean, it is very engaging. You want to know more. And at this point, we are getting rid of Robert Hall's star. The mask has come off, and now he will be referred to as Arthur Lee Allen from here on. And that's the way that Graysmith has introduced this to us. And about roughly around page 30 or something like that, he has taken the mask off and is giving us the name Arthur Lee Allen. Now, this book follows a very big thesis statement, and that simply says that Arthur Lee Allen is a very likely suspect in the Zodiac Killer mystery, as well as saying that other people perhaps would be involved with something such as covering up information. And Graysmith even writes in the book that whoever helped cover up certain things related to the guilt of the Zodiac Killer, whoever the Zodiac was, even if you're not thinking about Arthur Lee Allen, whoever helped cover that stuff up is also an equally important mystery. And I think this really reinforces a point that I had made in a previous upload when I said that the Zodiac Killer mystery is not only about who was this person, what was his identity, who was the Zodiac Killer. It's not only about identity. It's also about all of these other mysteries to solve, let alone what are the meanings of the ciphers. For example, I think that it is very valuable for us to have Zodiac Killer discussions in a particular way. Not only should we just be thinking about who was this murderer from 1968 and 69, but also what was going on at the time period. Like, how did these things in San Francisco affect the police departments, the newspapers? Like, view it as something historical. What was going on in that part of California? Or just, we can tie it into some other things nationwide. How did this affect things in terms of history? How are the police departments functioning, and how are the newspapers operating? Some other things to just think about as we go along the way exploring the Zodiac Killer mystery. Now, at this point, I would say that there are some points when it's just like, you just want to call bullshit on Robert Graysmith, and I wish I had a more polite way of putting it. If you've seen David Fincher's film, Zodiac, a large portion of that film was dedicated to Robert Graysmith trying to get a handwriting sample from Arthur Lee Allen. And he's saying that he believed that Allen was ambidextrous, and perhaps he could have written the ciphers and the letters with his right hand when Allen was left-handed. And this is the part of the book where they are exploring that. And someone even brings it to Graysmith's attention that the Zodiac could have been left-handed, but writing the letters with his right hand. And that would be one point where I would genuinely want to call bullshit. Some way, somehow, something is going down that pathway where that's just, someone must be spreading some type of misinformation. I mean, that's just my personal gut feeling, first reaction. It doesn't necessarily have to be Graysmith, because he says he got it from an investigator named Morrill. So it's like, it doesn't have to be Graysmith specifically. But what I would say is that, I really think that there is a little bit of fabrication going on with that. And I even thought that when I was watching the David Fincher film Zodiac for the first time years ago. I was like, something just stands out to me about that, saying that, I can accept that Arthur Lee Allen was left-handed and he learned how to write with his right hand as a kid. They tried to make him write with his right hand. I can accept that. But when someone is bringing it to Graysmith's attention, okay, the Zodiac was most likely a left-handed man who wrote the letters and the ciphers with his right hand, with the other hand. I believe in somehow, some way in this chain of command, disinfo has been spread. Now, let's look here, because Robert Graysmith is going to be very much involved in the Zodiac Killer mystery. And not only as a person who was a cartoonist at the San Francisco Chronicle, but also in just the entire picture. And when we read The Great Zodiac Killer Hoax of 1986, he is the center point. That book is not so much about who was the Zodiac Killer. Instead, it was about trying to debunk Robert Graysmith. And I would just like to look at a particular line here in Graysmith's book when he is talking about Arthur Lee Allen's neighbor, and there could be some things that are going on after the Lake Berryessa stabbing. Let's just read right here. 18 days after Lee spoke with Lynch, William Langdon White, pay attention to that name, Allen's 73-year-old neighbor, died of heart failure at 9:55 p.m., just after seeing his doctor. White was a California native and a 21-year resident of Vallejo, and had lived 7 houses down from Arthur Lee Allen at 45 Fresno. He had been Lee's alleged alibi for the Lake Berryessa stabbings. I recall speaking to a neighbor shortly after I drove into my driveway. Lee had said, "I guess I had neglected to tell the Vallejo officer." White had also been a possible witness of a bloody knife on Allen's car seat. As a longtime business representative for the Butchers Union, Local 532, White logically would have paid attention to any knife. And coincidentally, William White's birthday, December 20th, was also the date of the Lake Herman Road shootings. White shared a last name with Sergeant William White. I think they share more than a last name. I was just trying to read this a couple of times. I was just like, his name is William Langdon White. And then the ranger that we're going to hear about is named William White. Sounds like they have both the same first name and last name. Sergeant William White, who was the second ranger to reach the couple that the Zodiac had stabbed at Lake Berryessa. All through October of 1969, Ranger William White had been highly visible in a series of television interviews about the Zodiac. All right, what do we make of that? I mean, as I said, we talked about the Great Zodiac Killer Hoax of 1986 previously on this channel. The thing that stands out to me most is not anything to do with the neighbor. It's not anything to do with December 20th. It's that William White, he writes here, was the second ranger on the site of the Lake Berryessa stabbing. The first was Dennis Land. And that comes up in the Great Zodiac Killer Hoax that Dennis Land was the first one on site. He destroyed evidence because Dennis Land was the perpetrator who actually committed the stabbing. He committed the crime. He left for 30 minutes. He came back, destroyed the evidence, and we've explored that in the past. I just wanted to point out that Graysmith referred to the second ranger, not the first, because in the Great Zodiac Killer Hoax, Graysmith is an active participant in this. Thomas Horn's own admission, he cannot prove that, but he believes that to be true, and he's still looking for some evidence that will solidify his theory. He admits it very openly that certain things may be missing about that, but that Graysmith is an active participant spreading disinfo and possibly even the author of at least one of the ciphers. So, I mean, that's when I say Graysmith becomes somebody who is involved with the entire picture. As for the bloody knives on the seat of Arthur Lee Allen's car, the alternative that has been provided is that was not Arthur Lee Allen. There was a motorist who was stopped by the police and had 2 bloody knives on his car, and that was outside of Ukiah, California. I think Ukiah was U-K-I-A-H. I misspoke the first time I mentioned that town, but Ukiah, California. He was a motorist who had nothing to do with the Lake Berryessa stabbing, and it was not Arthur Lee Allen. And that would be like one of the examples of a sentence where half of the sentence is true and half of the sentence is false. That's just the alternative, mind you. Because when you look at Zodiac Unmasked, I would say that I find it very engaging, and I really find that it's almost, I think I would have preferred if they explored a few more possibilities, really trying to nail Arthur Lee Allen for this, but as we know about all the things that have come out, Arthur Lee Allen isn't so much a prime suspect anymore. Some of the things to say is that if you're going to look at Arthur Lee Allen as a personality, he does not sound like a saint. He sounds like someone who has mental issues. All parties would probably agree to that. One of the possibilities that they explore in the pages that we were reading today was that Arthur Lee Allen may have been a schizophrenic or a psychotic. And they were even saying that if they were to give him a lie detector test, it's possible that he could pass because he believed it so wholly himself. Now, if I had heard that maybe 3 years ago, I would have called bullshit on that. But we have done an entire upload on this channel talking about the mechanics of lie detector tests, how reliable are they. I think it may have been our most highly viewed and listened to upload, but I'm not sure. Anyway, about that one, some of the things that we explore is Dr. Ramani, the psychologist who goes on a variety of talk shows, even mentioned that same statement. If somebody is psychopathic or sociopathic, there is a possibility that they can pass a lie detector test. Because in the past, lie detectors were done by 3 major components: heart rate, blood pressure, and galvanic skin tension. So if a person was not showing any signs of lie detection, or their heart rate wouldn't escalate when telling a lie, in short, maybe they're just very calm, and the psychopath and the sociopath would be cool as a cucumber when they are faced with this, because they would not have a conscience. The first thing to note about that is being a schizophrenic and being a sociopath are 2 very different things. I mean, I think that goes without saying. And the second thing is, I know this is totally not super relevant to 1971, but nowadays, lie detectors have some new things: the computerized polygraph, the zone algorithm scoring method. I don't believe that those claims that people are making about debunking lie detectors are still relevant. I mean, like, some new stuff has come out, more or less, but that, of course, wouldn't have been relevant to Arthur Lee Allen in 1971. So, to get back on point, when we're looking at this segment here in the book, what it seems like is Arthur Lee Allen is somewhat of a dangerous personality. That's how they're setting the stage. He's someone who likes to talk, likes to hear himself talk. As soon as he's behind closed doors, they're like, he just starts talking. He likes being the center of attention. He is someone that can be rather moody, someone who has somewhat of this unstable personality, the kind of unstable personality that would have taken place with someone who would be plotting the Zodiac murders. Now, here's something, though, that I think is rather interesting. Robert Graysmith writes in this book, Zodiac Unmasked, that one of the reasons why Arthur Lee Allen was not detected was after the murders, he gained a lot of weight. And he did say, though, in the first segment that we did on this channel, that the Zodiac was actually much rounder faced, had a much rounder face than what was given out to the public. But with this one of the things he says is that when he sees the photos of Arthur Lee Allen as a diver, which Arthur Lee Allen was, and he writes about that very openly in the book, when he sees him, like, on the diving board, he has a photo of him when he was much younger, he's like, wow, he really resembles the physical descriptions of the Zodiac. And he's saying that Arthur Lee Allen went under the radar because after the murders, he gained weight, he lost his hair, and that he had, in short, his appearance had drastically changed to the point where he no longer resembled the Zodiac killer. But Graysmith is even calling himself on that. He calls himself out on that, more or less, by saying that the Zodiac did write that his appearance only looked a certain way when he was committing the murders. He had a very specific appearance that he used when he was committing the murders, and then he would change his appearance. But I think that it's rather bizarre that Graysmith would be like, oh, the younger photos of Arthur Lee Allen look so much more like the composite sketches of the Zodiac killer, and not provide any of them. If he doesn't give us anything, maybe he'll put something out later in the book, but if he doesn't give us anything to see for ourselves, that would be another point where I would just be like, I want to call a little bit of bullshit out on that. And furthermore, what a lot of people look for in the Zodiac killer mystery is, oh, does this guy have short hair and did he wear a pair of glasses? I'm not even kidding with you. I'm not being silly. Countless times you'll see that come up when they're discussing certain Zodiac killer suspects. Yes, if only his hair were shorter and you put a pair of glasses on him, he would look just like the Zodiac. This happens all the time. And Arthur Lee Allen is somebody, of course, that even after being exonerated by DNA, people still want to think that he is the Zodiac Killer. Very widely held belief amongst people online. But, unless Graysmith gives us a photo to kind of cross-reference, I wouldn't put a whole lot of weight in that statement. Just Graysmith looking at a photo on someone's wall saying, oh yeah, by the way, he used to look a lot more like the Zodiac. Just very little information about that. But he's trying to use that as a persuasion tactic. What I would say, though, about this book is just that I definitely think that they have someone who has the personality of being the Zodiac. Do I believe that Arthur Lee Allen was actually schizophrenic? No. But, they just say that it is somewhat of a possibility, and they're actually pulling things from Arthur Lee Allen's therapy notes, mind you. But overall, though, I really just do not find that this was the overall most convincing presentation, but it definitely gets your curiosity running, and you want to know more about how Arthur Lee Allen would have acted as a person, because once you are sort of in this situation, you can see that what Graysmith is trying to do with this part of the book is, he's trying to say that Arthur Lee Allen just went under the radar. They're like, oh, he has the wrong type of hair. Oh, he has the wrong physical appearance. So then they're just brushing him to the side. He was given softball interviews when he was investigated by the police. And that's one of the things that Graysmith does want to genuinely contribute. So says the book, is that Arthur Lee Allen was investigated, or you would say interrogated by the police, more or less. He was questioned by the police, and that they just simply dismissed him too early. And then that was greatly overlooked. And once investigators started going back and looking at things years later, they're like, hey, what? When did all this happen? And he's showing a big error that was committed by either the police departments, or there was certain information that they could overlook. We should say that. Overlooked information as opposed to an actual error. Now, let's just look here at one last thing, though, that we could say about Arthur Lee Allen. And I would just like to read something here from the book. Karen, like Tucker, confirmed Allen was left-handed. His elementary school teacher attempted to make him right-handed. He learned to write that way, but soon reverted to writing with his left hand. When Morrill believed the letters were written right-handed, he suspected that the Zodiac was naturally left-handed. The obscuring effect of a felt-tip pen and a left-handed man printing firmly, unnaturally with his right hand might explain the difficulty in matching hand printing to any suspect. Sergeant Mullinax was hungry to learn more. I have some big exceptions with that. There could be countless reasons why somebody is writing a particular way. If you look at your own handwriting, does your handwriting tilt to the left or to the right? Mine definitely tilts to the right. I was just glancing at some of it right now. And I just don't feel that there is a lot of value in that statement. But, hey, some things could be possible. Anything is possible. And if I am wrong about any of the things that I've said here, I will gladly accept it. And that's why I would like you to just challenge any of the claims that we've made in this upload. If you have a point that you would like to challenge, please drop it in the comments section below, because I think that's where we're going to have to leave part 2 for now, but we will continue onward with our discussions about the Zodiac Killer and Zodiac Unmasked. If you like this upload, you can hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you're welcome to do so. But most importantly, please drop something in the comments section so we can continue the discussion. And until next time.